We can hear
this
ourselves
video
okay?
is unavailable, unfortunately, on YouTube.
Oh, I see. So it is not available because the link may have changed. I
Yeah.
am going to check. Yes, it looks like the link has changed. So let me give you the more recent link now. So I am going to paste the link to you on the chat, which is this one. I think the
Cool.
link just
Okay,
changed,
got it.
so it's
Yeah.
working now. Yeah. What I can see also, however, our LinkedIn, it's also live at the moment, and I'm just going to cross-check that.
Yeah, this is a kind of a user experience failure of Riverside.
Yeah, I think even on LinkedIn, it is working now. Perfect. And I'm going to put the LinkedIn link for you as well on the chat, which is this one. So we are live, Bence.
Nice one.
Thank you for taking the time out on this lovely Sunday afternoon. Though I must say the sun has gone behind the clouds now. It's still lovely. How are you today?
Yeah, it's
And
all
what?
good. I mean, the fresh air is really good, even if it's a little bit colder than yesterday. Thanks for the
Nice. So
opportunity, Monvi.
no, my pleasure. And I guess I would like to maybe we do a quick round of intros. Obviously, Bence, you and I have known each other for a few weeks now, coming to a month, I guess. And I think we're part of the Agentics Foundation, and I'm very excited, and I'm sure you are, about the dawn of Agentics AI, which is upon us, and throwing open a lot of opportunities, but also a number of challenges for us to navigate, and I guess to evangelize and explain, which is what we are here for. Would you like to kind of say, introduce a bit about why we are here today, what the purpose of our chat today is?
Yeah, we are both members of the Agentic Foundation that was founded by Ruth and many other people, and very, like a fan base approach, what we have towards the SPARC, which is the thing we will speak about this afternoon. And, we are not senior developers, we are technical, but learning every day. And we want to show people that it's not impossible to get into agentic coding, agentic engineering, and a lot of other stuff you can do. Even you can be a poet or an artist uh, as using different agents and the Spark network, which is mind-blowing if you think about it.
Indeed. And I think just on that point, like I am been the last 20 years starting off as a developer, been primarily moving into coordination space in tech-enabled changes. So projects, programs, products. Always been close to technology, but I never had the need to really code, though I love to tinker with whenever I could find the opportunity. But I guess for me, as years passed by, not staying daily coding meant I forgot the syntax. So the learning curve for trying to create something on my own had always been um, huge because you had to learn remember the commands, and that took a lot of time. So I started off like in December, like I was playing around, came across Cursor and the whole evolution of Agentics AI, and I like, wow, I can have an idea and I can actually create something. Took part in some Kaggle competitions, and my journey has started from there. And I discovered Roov and Agentics Foundation and what they are doing. And I guess it's amazing where we are. I'm going to talk more about that today. But Bence, what's your background? Like,
My background is
what's your day-to-day
design.
job?
Uh, like classic design, I started drawing nudes to understand the anatomy of the human body. So very classic kind of teaching, and then went to a little bit more technical HTML, CSS front end and branding. So I designed logos by hand on a paper, like pencil and paper, and then vectorized them like the classic graphic designer, and then started 10 years ago with B2B complex user experience design and UI design. So it's a broad kind of knowledge what I gathered through the years, and I enjoy them equally. But the latest, since ChatGPT, I really immersed into the AI. agentic development thing, because this is the newest one, and this is my kind of a passion to always do something new and leave the classic stuff for later. But this foundation is there.
Very nice. I guess as we've been talking about agents, let us show our audience what is Agentics Foundation. I guess just for before awareness before we go further. So I'm going to briefly share my screen here and probably show what Agentics Foundation is. Hopefully you can see my screen. Is it appearing, Bence? Do you see my screen?
There's a little bit of delay on YouTube, so I can see on
the
on
Riverside,
Riverside, yes, okay. And yeah,
lovely. I
on
guess
YouTube now.
So yeah, so I think just to summarize for everyone, Agentics Foundation is a non-profit global community-led organization, right? Started off by Roof, and it's, as it says, the intention is to democratize AI responsibly, safely, and enable everyone to benefit from using it to create new products and translate new ideas to reality. Did I represent that correctly?
That's correct, yes.
Lovely.
What I found fascinating, that it's very kind of organic and very human as it started. So no corporations, no agenda.
And we run live coding sessions every Thursday at 5 p.m. UK time, and I think a hackerspace as well on Friday. And it's been happening for a year now. It's just completed a year.
Just a first birthday party we had last week.
Exactly. Right. On that note, I'm going to stop sharing. I hope it's stopped sharing. I think it has stopped sharing. Yeah. And so let's probably, we want to talk about 5 broad things today. I think what you and I chatted about. I guess we're going to talk about the landscape that is changing in the whole space of product management, software development, delivery. What does it mean for us, people, processes, technology, I guess organizations. And we're going to talk a little bit more about SPARC, the SPARC idea, and we'll leave the description a little bit later, what that means. We're also going to talk a little bit about how people can start using at a foundational level these capabilities. And I think you've got some examples to showcase. I have some as well, but we will probably be led by yours first. And then we want to talk a little bit more about what our vision is, what we want to do, and how we work with everyone. So let me pause here. Anything you want to add to that, Bence?
Yeah, so it's so broad, and the noise is so big, that I always say that nobody should be intimidated by the flood of information. Just if you want to upskill, or if you want to know, try to build something, even the smallest app or the one landing page, even if you are not a developer. Try to find the best sources and filter a lot, because there are so much noise, and there's so much fake news around AI and Agentics and all the methodologies. So it's not easy to understand, but if you invest time and you cross-check your sources, then you have a methodology to filter, like common sense, as you would do with politics, or as you would do with music or anything. You will find the sources that you trust most, and then you can follow how they do. And even, for me at least, YouTube videos, tutorials were the best, because you can pause, you can follow what other people are doing on their screens, so you have a kind of a free university on YouTube, basically. And that's what I would do. And don't be scared of reading a lot about a theory, but not too much. More practice, and always ask the language model.
Learning by doing.
Learning by doing, and
Exactly.
always have ChatGPT open or Claude open on your machine, and ask always that, hey, I'm not a developer, I don't understand this, can you explain it to me, give me step by step, guidance. How do I set up the backend? I never did backend, and I have multiple apps that are running and connecting to different databases. Uh, the language models are always there 24/7 and can teach you um, much better, maybe sometimes much better than a teacher, because they have unlimited energy, and they can switch the language to your level. Like, if you are good in math, it will be a different teaching method. And if you are really not the friend, I mean, if you are not really into numbers and system thinking, then the language model will know this and will change the teaching style accordingly. So it's very powerful to have a coach next to you.
And you very nicely put that. I guess what I would like to add to that is, I guess that's absolutely the starting point. But I think what has happened in the last 6, 7 months, I think maybe less than that, is we have seen a shift from that direct task execution engagement with AI. So we would use ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude to ask a question, to more higher level strategic directioning, like autonomous and use to go from a concept to reality on a very esoteric topic. I mean, I'm the best thing I remember is navigation using the Earth's gravitational field as opposed to GPS. What could quantum mean for that? And I guess any topic, the ability to kind of really be creative about it and actually translate it into something which you can not touch, but you can actually see and use. So it's becoming very autonomous. And I think that's where we are going. And that's the shift that is happening. And I think this is where um, we need to prepare ourselves, and frameworks like Spark. It's still evolving. It's not a perfect framework yet, but that's what allows us to understand and again take baby steps towards those kind of outcomes, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that example with the GPS and quantum was too much, too high level for me, or I was just very tired when I was watching the session. But on the Agentics Foundation website, you can always replay these rambling and absolutely mind-blowing theories that people are presenting. Uh, yeah, yeah. So I also wanted to ask your experience on Spark and agentic coding with Cursor. That, do you read everything? Because when you mentioned these autonomous methods, and that's autonomous method. Spark is also autonomous completely. So you can, yeah, if you are advanced enough, you can just leave it overnight and it builds you an app, if the setup is good and the documentation is good. But it always comes the question that you have 100-page or 1,000-page AI generated documentation of a software or an architecture, a plan, implementation plan, so on. Should we read that, everything, every line, or should we read all the code that is being generated, or just trust the the agents, the group of agents who are basically a team of developers? What would you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess what for the benefit of those maybe new to this concept of Spark, maybe we should take 2 minutes just to explain what Spark is, and then I guess both you and I can share our experiences, like where it has worked, where it could work better, and what can we do to make it work better, our
Yeah,
experiments with it, like we can share. But I guess let me start perhaps by starting to share this particular what is Spark, right? So if I share my screen, and please confirm if you can see my screen, should hopefully load up
yeah,
pretty. Yeah, I
I can
see
see.
that. So Spark really is what? It's the fundamentals of any software development mechanisms. Like when you're going back to the days of basic, I guess, which is when I started learning programming yeah, in school. It started with like understanding what is it, so specifications, writing the pseudocode for it, right? So before even writing a single line of code, um, creating a high level approach and architecture, and continuously refining it, and then trying to get towards our target completion mechanisms. That's what Spark is. And the way I'm interpreting, looking at Spark is that, and you've rightly pointed out there, like Spark has this set of virtual team that works with you, which starts with things like an orchestrator or a project manager, an agent that writes specifications for what we want. So after doing level of research, which you could do manually, or you could use Claude, Gemini, or even Perplexity, etc. Architecture, creating architecture approaches to delivering on it. And without going through each one of them, as you can see, create software, test it, validate it, automate it, whatever, right? And what I think Reuven, that is, has done here is created a easy to way process for people to access it. So simple npx command to initiate it for any work. Let me just pause here. Does that kind of, would you like to add something to what I just mentioned here?
Yeah, not much I can add. The usage section is perfect as Ruv documented. It worked for me right away when I set it up locally. The other thing I wanted to add that it doesn't come to my mind. Anyway, I will circle back later. But the main methods, and I mean it's more complicated than it seems. So basically, you've got we can compare it to a human team. So you have experts; they work together, and there is a boss who assigns a task, and they then create something in the end. It can be an app, it can be a website,
Yes.
and it can be a report, or it can be a new script for a new movie. It doesn't matter really, and you can always add or remove workers from this team.
Exactly. And I guess maybe we're going too much into the details at the very beginning. We might come back to that, I guess, to show people. But I'm just thinking maybe since we have started talking about it, maybe it is better to just show what it looks like in reality, like how you set it up. Um, what I think, Bence, is that Spark at the end of the day is a sophisticated set of prompts that guide an AI to continue down a lane or multiple lanes without losing sight of what the end goal is, right? That
That's
is
it.
the way I basically define kind of try. Yeah. Okay. I think
Yeah,
you're
and
nodding your head.
just
Yeah.
something it's very important, and we always forget. We are experts, but we always forget, or used to forget last year, that there is a memory limit. So they forget everything. So imagine, maybe the 51st Dates movie a long time ago, when a girl met every day. She had a memory loss, and every day was the first date with the same guy. It was Adam Sandler, I think. And this is how a language model approaching your app. So after the memory is full, it forgets everything what happened in the past and starts new. And maybe it starts to create new stuff, like changing a library, changing the model, and very important things that you already organized and set up is deliberately changed and breaks the code, or breaks your complete strategy document. And this is how all with these documentation and guardrails, and implementation plans, we can avoid that kind of problems a lot.
And speaking of that, as I share my screen next, I think we've been we talked about the modes, right? And we talked about prompt engineering. Um, so the modes that we saw before, I think you can see my scary looking Visual Studio window. Is
It's
that
a
right?
nice color scheme. I love that.
Yeah. So here is an orchestrator, just like a program project manager, product manager manager, project manager, or program manager, I might have repeated it, is they orchestrate complex workflows, right? Complex requirements. They break down large objectives into plans, create tasks, and give it to different team members, and then they maintain track of it, right? So all we're doing is that's what you are, my dear AI agent here, and you should do a number of things. I'm not going to lead each line here, but you can see, you are giving it a role, you're giving it a goal, and you're giving it a number of tools like search and replace as a tool, etc., etc. Then you could have, for example, an architect who would normally, as any architect, solution, or enterprise would do, is design scalable, secure, modular architectures based on functional specs and user needs. And you give some guardrails. As you said, I think, Bence, you rightly said, AI, obviously, unless you tell it, it'll forget, it'll veer off in the wrong direction. So you have to say, create proper architectural diagrams, create proper data flows, create integration points, ensure no part of the design includes secrets. Look, security is a big thing about AI. People say, "Well, we're leaking data to AI. It's not enterprise grade." But no, you could actually, as you see, ask AI to be absolutely secure about it, and so on and so forth. So there is similarly is a coder, there is a tester. So yeah, this is the best thing about it. Like I think from what I have learned in the last few weeks, and I'm not a developer as a day job, but most sophisticated developers have said this. I think that people try to just code, right? They don't necessarily adopt the test-driven approach because you might want to have to write more, you might have to code more for tests than for the actual product. So people kind of go down a shortcut of actually coding and testing afterwards. But what proper approaches like test-driven development, etc., you could actually use AI and these frameworks to do more. Again, stopping here, Bence, your thoughts and views, please. I can scroll down if you want to talk a little bit more about the others.
Yeah, it's a very rich topic, and we can go very deep. We can just mention the high levels, but for example, the fantastic on this RU modes is that you can, or if you go down to the top, the bottom left corner, you can see these modes switcher. Yeah, exactly, and you can have your own emojis. You can have your own kind of colors, your style. You don't need to follow this. This is you get a set of a theme set up for you when you install this plugin in VS Code. Um, but you can you can create if you're a cybersecurity expert, you can have a security mode, and you can just apply your everyday work methods onto it, and you can have a security audit, or you can have a designer. You can invite a designer to the team who oversees the code from the perspective of accessibility, like aesthetics, the latest trends, and so many other aspects. And we actually tried at one of the sessions that using these modes and setups from other people, actually the all with different prompting and all different orchestration uh, influences the output, so you get maybe a different UI in the end. You get a different architecture. One of the apps were more secure than the other, so the possibilities are really endless here. So there are no rigid um, rules that are set in stone.
I think this is a perfect time to move into something of a real example. But I think before I do that, you did mention about the files, like in the guidance thing, right? I thought I might want to quickly share with a bit of beyond the basic prompts that we have shown you, shown our audience here, is like what does these guidance actually furthermore look like? So obviously in here, like if we go to these MD files here, like let's choose something which is quite, this one is very basic, right? So here is general guidance on SPARC, I guess,
Yeah.
which talks about code quality standards, what you should do, what you should not do, subtask. I think there were, so there's a lot of guidance that we can give to the architect, the various other roles, like, this is the monitoring mode, right? So if, deployment monitoring, so you could have multiple multiple roles that you can get the. So I think I was chatting with someone yesterday, and again, the new person we were talking about LLMs, and a common
Yeah,
misunderstanding is that LLMs would hallucinate. They would just do anything, any point in time. You can't rely on them for coding. But I guess the misunderstood point is that you could actually make the behavior predictable by the right amounts of guidance. So at every time you're invoking an LLM, you send the relevant guidance to it so it knows what to do and what not to do. Again, your thoughts on this, please.
exactly that. And you can have a hybrid setup. So if we speak about security, then there are methods that and tools and software that audits automatically and prevent leaks and any other security problems while the language model is coding. So it's possible to have 100% security. So of course, language models can't guarantee 100% predictability, but with the classic tools, we can set up a hybrid system. The other one is you mentioned different roles. It's just top of my head that you can even add compliance knowledge, compliance modes. So you can invite your colleagues from the compliance department or um, other experts and can speak about you can sit down with them and tell them that, hey, how would you audit this app in real life, and then all these methodologies and steps that they take, you can translate it into a mode inside ru code, and then you have that colleague automated inside this VS Code setup. It doesn't mean that he or she is replaced. It means that the boring part is made for them, and they can scale, and then they can concentrate on the high level, very human aspects of it. And you can if you work at a big organization, um, you can speak with a lot of colleagues from different departments and fields, and all the subject experts can be invited into this conversation that, hey, what kind of modes should we set up in RuCode,
You
basically.
beautifully segued into, I think, what something I my mind is the value proposition for human professionals, right? I think that's where you're segueing. Um, so you mentioned about repetitive, mundane, boring stuff to kind of a different role for humans. I think the whole move towards or for a human to take on this more strategic intent definition, right? So you've got a problem. What is the intent? Why? What? Ethics, etc., etc. Like relevance. The whole intent definition, kind of trying to find a way to decompose the complex problems into more distinct chunks, right?
Chunks,
That
yeah.
are manageable, and also obviously using AI to do that, and also using AI to get the output. But more importantly, evaluating AI on its outputs, right? Governing the ethical aspects of it, orchestrating the collaborative workflow between the humans. So human I guess, interfacing is a big, is increasingly becoming a reality. I think that is the value proposition for humans professionals, right? So it's no longer so compliance, absolutely, legal yeah, law, same thing.
Yeah,
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 so you
exactly. That's what
beautifully
I
touched
forgot.
upon that.
That you can even have a low mode or a GDPR expert inside VS Code, and so you are not getting into trouble when you launch your app that is leaking private data, because your agent um, can flag GDPR problems before actually launching your product. So many very useful stuff can be done.
You did mention, say VS Code, but I did try this mechanism on Cursor as well. So I was quite excited in Cursor to see that they introduced multiple modes. So hopefully you can see my other screen, but I don't know whether it is quite small or is it visible enough?
It's perfect. Yeah, I see VS Code
Perfect, right?
now. No, sorry, this
No,
is cursor.
this is
It's
cursor.
cursor, yeah.
This is cursor.
Very
I thought
similar. It's a fork. It's
yeah.
a copy of VS Code.
So what I managed to do is I managed to define some of the same roles that you saw in Rue code in VS Studio in here. But I think the interfacing, they are all limited to only 5 additional custom modes. They don't allow you to have more than 5. So, but because I'm still learning the whole process, I was trying to do the same thing in Cursor and in VS Code. Different levels of success, but I guess what it is possible is that it seems like the mechanism of Spark is transferable. It's not linked to one tool, but you
Very
could
important.
effectively use it. So what I've done is, for example, here in I have defined cursor rules. So similarly, the same rules that we saw there, I've defined here, and I keep reminding the AI agent. It's not as clever as Rue code, I must say. It doesn't automate. It's a lot of manual handoffs here, unlike I guess in VS Studio Rue code, where you could actually let it run for hours at a stretch, right? So that's been my experience. Have you had similar experiences with other tools using this framework?
Yeah, yeah. So I started hearing about all these documentation and recursive testing from the foundation, from Roof, actually, because I never learned professional development, and everybody started to implement. Okay, now we are not just blindly using Cursor or similar tools, but we actually need to spend a day with the boring documentation, writing manually the implementation part, the architecture, all the test approaches and stuff. But it's nothing new for senior developers, because that's what they have been doing for decades. But for us newbies, this was completely new. And then we just started to put text files, like markdown files, in the directory, and I prompted, and other people prompted that hey, can you do this app for me, like in what you do in Lovable or Bolt or Cursor, but look at the documentation, because I made a plan for you and you have to follow that. But sometimes it's behaving badly and it's not willing to follow, like a child. It's very similar. That okay, Cursor had the documentation, everything was prepared for Cursor, but just didn't want to follow. And I think it's with Rue code, with the Spark system, it's almost guaranteed that it's keeping everything as the documentation, so following your strict rules, and that's how you guarantee the code quality. But as you know, I wouldn't bet on that.
Exactly.
You need a human team to actually test. But it can happen that with recursive testing, when your testing all turns to green, then you have a working app. That's possible. I don't have that knowledge to say facts, but just
A-
experiences.
Yeah, and I think you have also lovely touched upon like what we feel should be it means new, it's still evolving. So
It's very new.
it needs to be repeatable for everyone. So I guess we were talking about a Spark foundations approach, like someone get started, a zero to hero kind of approach, right? With where we I think maybe we will talk about it a little bit later about when we talk about our next steps, but I think there's definitely kind of a need for us to create a pathway, pathway like a maturity approach to get different personas comfortable and understanding how to go about things. I think we were long overdue to talk about a real example. So would you like to showcase something that you have done using the framework?
Yeah. So before the live session, my
Yeah,
VS Code completely collapsed, so I had to reinstall it. Where do I share my screen?
there is a button
Ah,
at the
I see.
next to the leaf.
Okay.
Yeah,
And I'm going to share the entire screen now.
okay.
So you might see my VS Code. It's
I do.
um, this is completely new now. So
Do you
as you,
mind zooming it a little bit?
I change my display setting, maybe.
I think usually if you're using a MacBook, it's Command Shift Plus, assuming it's a MacBook.
Is it better?
Yeah. It's okay. I think I can. It's probably the same. Try doing yeah, perfect, perfect,
Okay.
perfect.
Cool. And I'm not setting up Copilot now.
Yeah.
But what I do, and I can just suggest to anybody that if you've seen a tutorial or you've seen one of Roof's presentations, just make some notes how to set up something that you liked. So I liked, and we also wanted to do this live session about SPARC, and I just created, the text document where I can just copy the the main steps how to set this up. And the first one is, but no, let's speak about what you get from Roo code when you start installing it. So download VS Code for free, that's fine. And then you go to the plugins library and you start typing in ROO, and install that. And in a few seconds, you got it installed. And let's open a folder now. This is an empty folder, so I've got a completely new project. And I've got this kangaroo icon here, and that's where I can start setting up a little bit of, basic knowledge you need to have about different tokens and token costs and so on. You can use your own API key, but the most practical is using Requesty. Requesty is a UK company in London, and you can just sign up with GitHub or Google, and you get some credits, and you can start using it. A few clicks, you authorize, and you have this set up for you. So everything is prepared. It's much easier than like 2 weeks ago, 1 month ago. You don't need to copy paste API keys. You have to grant access to VS Code and vice versa, and you have this set up and running. And the Roo team created some default modes. The coder, the guy who's writing the code, the architect. Yeah, well, you wanted to say something?
I think we must highlight this. Actually, they were inspired by the work Agentics Foundation were doing in terms
Yeah,
of these different modes, right? We had a
exactly.
guest from Hannes from Roo Code on one of our sessions earlier on, didn't we?
Exactly that. And you are fine with these as well. So you can start working with this setup. You can have a new one, or you can just remove one. So that's quite easy to customize this. But what we were speaking about, let's set up now SPARC, which adds a lot of new team members. The first step is go to terminal and run this npx. You say yes, and Roof created a very easy setup method that with one line of code you have new modes set up for you inside VS Code, which is a text file, .ro and .ru modes. And this is in the directory now. You can have a look. If you are curious, you can see all the system prompts. It's the same method when you speak with ChatGPT, guides and rules and prompts. It's a system, and this is a JSON file which is orchestrating the whole thing. I don't want to go into, don't even understand how they communicate with each other, but we are the user. We don't need to know that. And I think it should appear now, or maybe we should restart VS Code and then appears again. Let's see.
Just whilst you do that, actually that intercommunication happens through the rules. So in the main rules, it under when you start the orchestrator in the prompt it says which are the other modes it'll work with. So if you want to change the flow, you could modify that prompt and take some of the roles out of the equation. Then they don't get involved. And it occurs to me that that may be a way to make it to work with the likes of Cursor, where they don't allow so many rules. Like Cursor is the other IDE, obviously, which we went through earlier on. But to answer your question earlier on, it's through that prompt in the orchestrator. That's what controls. Yeah.
Okay. There are many settings in VS Code. What we have to concentrate on as a beginner is to have Claude 3.7 selected, and the API provider is Requesty, which gives us a much cheaper token than the original provider. Anthropic has a absolutely top model. There are some debates which one is the best, but everybody should have their own idea and tests whether to use. OpenAI or O3 is brilliant, Gemini is brilliant, but Claude 3.7 is the leader, but not always. So you need to have a kind of an experience what and when to use it. Sometimes Claude stocks can't solve a problem, then you are free to try out something else. You can just type in the first few characters of Gemini, or you've got O3 from OpenAI, I think, here as well. Yeah, you've got all the OpenAI models available. So make some tests, make some mock-ups, and find out yourself what works for you. But Claude, yeah, that's what we want. And I want to rename this default to Requesty, so I know that. What's that? So I know that I have requested the API provider when I start working. That's just a practical tip. And we can start prompting. We can say that create strategy document for us, how to I don't know, what shall we do, like
just before you do, I think it may not have detected the could you click on the orchestrator, the drop down or drop up? Yeah, oh, we detected. Lovely. And this is the Spark orchestrator you have chosen, or the inbound orchestrator?
Yeah, this is the Boomerang, because
Okay.
Yeah, the company doesn't know what it's very new technology, so we don't know how do we call it Boomerang or orchestrator. It's not clear, but it will be much clearer in the next coming month. And this is the Spark orchestrator.
This is the Spark frameworks. Maybe up to you which one you want to select, the rules default orchestrator or the Spark orchestrator.
Yeah, let's try roofs. Yeah, this is
yeah,
Spark.
because unless you select that, it will not be able to communicate with the other modes, because that is the anchor point. Spark orchestrator.
Okay. And it is a little bit messy, because the default team members and the Spark team members are mixed up now. Maybe there is a way to create some folders. I'm not sure, but there must be a way to tidy this up. Yeah, create a document for us to understand how to, I don't know, how to promote organization online and how to build a community. So this is not developer a task, it's creating a strategy document. And from this point, you are free to leave and come back when all the tasks are done. You can set up your VS Code in a way that everything is happening automatically and gets an approval automatically. Or if you are micromanager, you can approve it manually. So you want to first read the plan and then approve, and you are then able to see the files coming. Um, they, all these orchestrator and the team members, the agents deciding, communicating with each other and deciding what to do. So they are starting writing the first documentation, and this is basically the way to create an app and everything else. Monweeb, do you have anything to add here? Right? How you
No,
do it
I
personally?
think you're doing the right thing by starting from the fundamentals, like what's to, how you how to get started. But I guess, as you've rightly pointed out, what it is doing is, it's, as we can say, the automating is changing the modes. So it's gone to document writer mode. So it's managing the whole flow from one agent with a narrow focus to another agent with another narrow focus, by making sure that it's aware of the SPARC rules, the rules that guide the SPARC framework. So specifications, pseudocode, architecture, I keep forgetting refinement, and then completing it, right? So it's trying to.
Completing it, yeah. Maybe we won't wait until it's done because it can, spend an hour with it. I don't know really, and we can see the costs are really very very tiny because we are just working with text documents.
Yeah.
You can see the memory of this language model is 200k tokens. This, we need to bear in mind that some of them are really really small. There are some 1 million and 2 million language models. They can hold a complete code base in their memory. It is much better than Claude, but still with this limitation, Claude is very efficient.
Yeah. Whilst that happens, maybe I can show something that I have been trying to, I guess, replicate based on our Thursday's session that looked at how, is it Claude that, yeah, the MCP, remote MCP server setup, right? With Claude. So let me just share my screen and then show you
Okay,
the
stop sharing.
flow that happened. Okay, it's taking a bit of a while because they're very, very long chat by the looks of it. But I just want to go and share my screen now. Share. And I want to share my window, which is the cursor window, which is over here. So hopefully my cursor window should be showing up. So I started with, I was having some problems with VS Studio Code. So I tried cursor. So I said that to provide context, model context protocol, which is MCP, that enables effectively, and I stand to be corrected if otherwise, AI-based interactions between different services. So it could be um, um, more like uh, communication between AI applications and data sources and others. So that's what a protocol does. So there has been a new library that has come along, which allows these model context protocol servers to be installed remotely. So far, they had to be installed locally within your clients like VS Studio Code or Cursor, and there were security concerns about that. But if I remember, so this new feature allows it to be deployed remotely. So this was like the prompt here was, I wanted to research the latest library from Cloudflare. So Cloudflare came up with this new framework product to define remote MCP servers and then create a basic research plan. Um, so when I did that, I got back, and this is where I think it's really interesting, is a set of research. And this happened because we have a mode here, and that mode is called deep research. So if I try and locate that properly, we would see it here. I use cursor obviously, but somehow, oh, there it is. If I go here, if I go to the edit button here, and I go to advanced options, it's a bit slow. So apologies for that. Yeah, there's a bit of there's a big prompt, so it kind of, you can't read it, but there's a lot of prompts here, and that prompt allows it to do research in a particular structured way that looks at some initial queries, like it defines, okay, this research project aims to do this item, of which is the goal of implementing a
Right.
robust model context protocol server with various AI assistants and other services. It creates the objectives. It thinks about the initial key questions to answer. It then talks about research boundaries, like what's in scope, what's out of scope, what would success look like, and what are the expected outcomes. Then what it does is it goes through key questions, goes through more in detail. Basically, it digs deeper and deeper, right? And it looks at where it has got the information from. So again, this is not hallucination because this is real information that the AI is obtaining. So here I had used 3.7 to do that. So I didn't use an MCP server like Perplexity. I just used, I think, 3.7 to do this. Then we had different data collected from all of these sources. So here, for example, it found out the technical implementations, like how the MCP agent class is used, what it does, where it is built, some examples of implementations. It's things like how authentication happens through what
Yeah.
is called workers. So Cloudflare has introduced this MCP workers, I think. So they are like workers who work on your behalf to create and deploy your servers. So there's lots of things. I'm not going to go into the details here. Then it does a lot of analysis work, like what patterns have been identified, like server federation patterns, like human in the loop pattern. How could this implementation look like? So it's done all of that research, looks at contradictions, like
Yeah.
in a certain aspect. So it's kind of very holistic, as you can see. Then it looks at knowledge gaps, like things like where documentation is not perfect, where there are unknowns. So it kind of makes itself all of this information, it documents in these files. Then it synthesizes those information. Here, for example, this is a lovely diagram, like how would the ecosystem look like how would the architecture look like, and all of this stuff. So it's effectively done detailed design, which a solution architect would generally do. So it's done all of that here. Then I found beyond key insights, what I found really fascinating is this stuff. What this stuff is talking about practical applications now. Now, let's say I have never read a single line of MCP, like I'm new, brand new. Imagine that's who I am. Though I have kind of followed it at a high level, I can go from zero to hero or zero to one just by, I don't need to build anything. Just like you are creating a document now, here I spent my afternoon yesterday reading through these documents, and I basically understood like how, what, when, etc. And
Amazing.
what I said
Yeah.
I found very fascinating are these applications. So here, for example, if I scroll down, it talks about product documentation assistant. So knowledge transfer, knowledge sharing, uh, employee onboarding. These are real use cases in the industry. Today, that many of these are manual, and many people are retiring, for example. Knowledge transfer is a big issue, right? The ability to document that at ease and make it accessible to people. They are real applications of here. Those e-commerce assistant, like to reduce, there are things like APIs had been stateless. The APIs are stateless, right? But here you have the mix of stateless and statefulness to what is called durable objects. So shopping sessions, which are kind of stateful, but you can access them like an API through MCP servers, and you can therefore reduce in dropout ratios or reduce cart abandonment, personalized shopping experiences. There's so many use cases of these that can come about. So it thought about all of these examples, and at the end of it, it created a plan saying that now that you have learned everything, do you want me to create this in phases? So phase zero, learn how to set up a basic implementation of MCP. So with no
Hmm.
knowledge, following it. And if I go to autocoder, which is what you showed in those modes, and I managed to do phase 1 and phase 2 so far. So I did a basically very basic template-based MCP deployment of a calculator and of
Yeah.
the other one's a currency converter, right? I deployed it in Cloudflare. It's working through the curl command at the moment. I won't go into details. But also things like authentication. Do you want some kind of authenticated access to certain services, right? And then it goes in phase 3, like, do you want to develop some of those tools that we talk about, like that e-commerce assistant? We should now go and build it because effectively we have documented what and how to create, right? So I guess this is quite, and I'll pause here. But what are your views? I think I find this fascinating actually that we can get to this level of detail within 24 hours.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit about the personalized learning, right? Is it something similar? Can be an analogy on that. That it's this path is designed for you personally for Monbe, rather than just reading a generic MCP tutorial, right? And you can always
Yeah. So if I say,
ask
for example,
questions.
sorry, go on.
No, just you are typing the prompt, and it made me realize that you can always ask questions from the language model if you are stuck.
So if I say, help me run the currency converter MCP to convert, this is the very basic stuff, right? Convert, uh, let me say GBP 100 into Chinese yuan, right? Or RMB. If I do that, let's see, I'm just doing the test live at the moment. So um, I think I might have exhausted my credits on Cursor, so it's been very, very slow now. But let's see. Okay, so that's the command
That's
it
fine.
wants me to run, right? So there we go. You can also run this tool. So no, let me just run it because my inbound thing here is not running. So all I'm doing is I'm doing a curl command onto my MCP server here, which is deployed here, which is basically my MCP server, the monreef.workers.dev MCP. That's where this MCP server for currency
Uh-huh.
converter is stored. So I'm going to run that. So yeah, I did translate. So 100 GBP, it says, is equal to 963 Chinese yuan, which looks right. Rate is 9.63, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
So that
And I
is,
wanted to ask you that there is a big confusion around MCPs. That how did you find Cloudflare workers, or are there any other possibilities to use them, or it's a mess right now, as I see around MCPs.
yeah, probably. I mean, this is how my journey has been. So if I go scroll up the chat here, so here what it does is that um, it is created. So if you look on the left-hand side here, it has created this MCP server here, right? My MCP server. And this is where it kind of defines there are some templates that you can use from Cloudflare directly. And I guess I'm still at the very beginning of the journey, but it looks kind of the fact that it has allowed MCP servers to be remotely deployed. So organizations can therefore apply their guardrails of security and whatever other things around there, rather than MCPs sitting as they traditionally have been on the client. Like before this, they would have sat here, right, on my local client. And I think most of the criticism was that this is not secure, that it's sitting on your laptop or something. But the fact that I don't need to have it on my client or cursor or VS Studio local setup, but rather I can deploy my MCP to Cloudflare, right? That is, I think, quite a market change. I think that's really promising.
That's the one. That's the big change with the remote MCP servers, right?
That is right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm still learning how I can check my Cloudflare. If I can find out, I'll show you. But whether I can see it somewhere deployed, but obviously it's not on my local laptop anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's your output looking like?
Let me see. Sharing the. So first I wanted to show you this trick, but maybe you already
Mm-hmm.
know it. So I like how cursor is set up because you've got your files on the left, and you can chat with the language model on the right. And this is as a default, it's not like this in VS Code. You have to switch between the two. This is the files, this is the language model. And I learned that you can just drag this kangaroo over to here, and then you have the same layout, the same UI as in cursor. And now somehow it disappeared, but don't worry. Let's see. So I think
That's
that
okay. That's okay.
this orchestrator created a folder and 1, 2, 3
Yeah.
different text documents that you can. This is just the overview. This is a plan, how you build a community, how to create a social media following base. Then the second one is digital marketing. And the third one is the best practices that we are now. Ru is waiting for approval to continue, and we're gonna have like 150 different Markdown documents. Yeah, so let's try to. I always manage to bring it over to the right. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes it happens. So if you work with language models, development tools, and overall software, this is happening for decades. You need to restart. That's the best practice, and it helps a lot. Yeah, you can see that now it appeared, and I have the same cursor.
Okay. What's you? I believe. Correct me if otherwise. I think you created some front end designs as well using some of parts of this framework. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah. So what's possible with the language models, even if you have just I just stopped sharing now. Am I sharing now? I don't know.
No, you're not. You've stopped sharing.
No. Yeah, because I restarted VS Code. So what's possible is with there are multiple ways to do front end. So the old way was to use Claude desktop version, or just the consumer version, Claude.ai, and write a prompt that, hey, I need a landing page, create a HTML for me, or create a Next.js React front end for me, and then you copy pasted the code. And you could use cursor after, and cursor with Claude was able to build a nice looking but quite mediocre or boring front end, because the Claude data set is fed with Tailwind kind of front end, so it's nothing interesting or nothing unique. But with the GPT latest update, the engine, is it image one or something like this, they call it.
It's not O1, right? It's O1.
Yeah, I don't even know. They have a confusing naming convention, but anyway, it can generate the images, and you can say that generate a fancy landing page for me, and then it's an image file, like it's a JPEG or a PNG, and then you can bring it over to any tool, even GPT itself, the consumer ChatGPT, and it can almost pixel perfectly can create the code for you. Or you can use the traditional way. I tested that and it works. Figma. You ask the designer to create a Figma design, or you do it for yourself, or you use the component library. Many companies use the component library, so you can build up a nice dashboard very quickly, and then export it as HTML. And the HTML, has been exported from Figma, becomes the documentation for SPARC, for Cursor, whatever you use. And then you are not blindly prompting that, it's very subjective that build me a nice dashboard. It's not documentation. It's what is nice. What is the audience? So you need to document design work as well, and you need to give exact guidance. And if you are in the position to have a UI design already, the language model will copy that and build that.
But I'm just thinking like, is there an opportunity here? Like obviously many CSS formats like Tailwind CSS and Bootstrap CSS and others, right? Which is what generally like before this LLM thing, you would say, okay, just apply that CSS structure to this design. Like if I want something which look nice, again, nice is subjective, but it should look nice. It's like a product manager or an entrepreneur trying to get something out. Is there an opportunity now, therefore, to say we can actually this process of prompting could be constructed in a such a way that it results in some kind of, not a CSS, but some kind of the structure. So they are standardized templates. So you can pick up those templates and say, feed that template to the LLM. So that's my definition of nice, a template, right?
Yeah,
And then the LLM therefore is guided appropriately. Have you seen that in practice? Some of this, what's been your experience around that?
I've seen experiments. Yeah, it's a very good topic because now companies can have a component library in like in 𝐶ED, for example. Maybe you know that, or any kind of React libraries which are brand compliant.
Mhm.
They use it everywhere in the legacy code as well, and all the new components, new apps, new websites are generated by AI, but the components will be taken from this library. So everything what the AI does will look consistent, templated, and that's feasible. You need to set up. You need a few weeks or a few days of installation and testing, but it's possible to do. And then you can say that from after the setup is done, you can prompt that give me a very nice dashboard, and it won't go to different random latent space, but it will pick your company's components and build that.
I understand.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's mind blowing to think about.
By the way, yeah, okay. But by the way, I just noticed like I can show you now where my MCP server is. I figured out, so I can see it now. So while maybe if I shared my screen on to talk that through, and it's quite interesting the way it is. Let me know when you see my screen.
Yes, I can see.
So I've logged into Cloudflare now, and I can see that's my account, right? I've got two MCP servers deployed on Cloudflare. So the one here is what I was trying yesterday. So when I was first trying to repeat what Roov did, I created a GitHub authentication, so it's no longer. So I had that, and the most recent one that I was showing you earlier on is this my MCP server. So if I click on that, I will see quite a lot of stats there. And this is like, so obviously this is very much like going back to the point about concerns about MCP, local, etc. Now this can be very much guardrailed against, right? And it gives me information like how many requests I have done in the last 1 hour, you know, etc., errors. I can see, oh, that's a nice graph there. What has been
Mm.
cached, what has been uncached. What else is there? Oh, interesting. Where my distribution is from. That's right. Okay, that's a very good stat actually.
Cloudflare is spot on. Yeah.
Yes. And again, going back to my persona as a program director, program manager, someone who's managed projects, like if a new technology comes and I want to see and construct and think through what that means, engage with the architects, the security guys, it is possible for that persona of a change persona to actually pretty much validate the hypothesis on their own. So I'm not saying I'm going to create a fully production ready application here, but the value addition is that the ability to really have an informed discussion rather than multiple sorts of meetings, multiple sorts of, it's basically better optimization of people's time and more improvement in productivity for an organization. I think that's where I see the benefits of this technology, kind of revolution, and also why organizations should take. This is not vibe coding, right? This is an agentic engineering approach because we've got guardrails and everything. Why I think organizations and upskilling their staffing to, I guess, start with this new approach is so very paramount.
It is.
I've gone off tangent. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, that's what I heard from